Hi, it's Richard here from Intelligent Advisor IT Consulting with another in our video series about the Cultivate Sofia integration between Salesforce and Oracle Intelligent Advisor. This particular chapter deals with a couple of interesting pieces of functionality in respect of debugging and also seeing it work in Experience Cloud sites. If you're interested, you can sign up for the beta program or view documentation by following the link you see on screen now. What we're going to do in this one is we're going to look at a simple project that is connected to the contact object. So I want to think of this as a community portal kind of context where I'm not interested in an account, I'm not interested in a case or an opportunity, I'm interested in the context of the community user themselves. Now, one of the neat features of the Sofia integration is that I have access to all the Salesforce API objects. So I've mapped this to contact. I've mapped it out to create a new case. Notice I've got a couple of attributes here, load and save debug, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now, normally when you're in a Salesforce org, the interview would have a context which is fairly straightforward. It would pick up the automatic context. But when you're in an experience site, it gets a little more difficult because often there isn't a standardized context. So here you can see in the load debug setting in my interview that there's actually an error message coming back from the connector to say there's an issue with the context. I can configure my interview to use an override to specify an exact context. So I'm going to set this to the user contact ID to override the standard behavior of the Lightning Web Component. So now with this overridden context, I'll be able to use this in my experience site. So you'll see that I'm going to log in here. So on this homepage, rather than trying to pick up a random context, it's actually using the context override and is loading the details of the contact user, in this case, the user of this portal, me, Steve, and I'm able to then run this interview from that context. I'll go ahead now and create a case with some random data. So this ability to override the default context is very useful. There's a number of options. I've shown you one called user contact ID. And I'll just fill this out. I'm displaying a bunch of fields just because I've been demonstrating this to somebody else. So the interview is complete, and you can see that I have now created a case. If we switch over to another page, we can see that the new case has been created within the context of the contact user. There's all the details. Yeah, I have a problem with my hat. There it is. And of course, switching back to a traditional Salesforce app, it would show up also in the cases as well. So the key point about this is the ability to override the default, which is to pick up whatever context the page that you're in has to give you. And the second point is to be able to use these load and save debug options to be able to get real-time feedback even when you're in the designer, or you're designing the page. You can use these load and to get you that, you can use these debug load and debug save to get you that kind of information. So these are added attributes that you can map into your project to use for feedback purposes. That's it for today. Let's see you soon for another one.